In this UK Brewery Project video, I'm going to be looking at Ringwood Brewery, the people behind the creation of the brewery, the beers produced, and along the way, have a taste of their beers. Any story of Ringwood Brewery needs to begin with Peter Austin. Peter Austin got into the brewery game through his dad, who had some connections, and got an apprenticeship at Brewery Brewery in Guildford. From there, he went to work at Hull Brewery, where he rose to become head brewer. He then retired in 1975 when Hull Brewery were taken over by Northern Foods. However, our story doesn't end there. Peter got back into the brewery game in 1977 when helping design the, and I'm going to struggle with pronunciation, Penrose Brewery for Terry Jones of Monty Python fame. In 1978, Peter founded Ringwood Brewery with his business partner David Welsh in a former bakery in the town of Ringwood in Hampshire. So Ringwood is based on the edge of New Forest and is situated alongside River Avon and down on the south coast, so between Portsmouth and Bournemouth way. The first beers produced at the brewery, which are still produced to this day, were the Best Bitter, which is now called Razorback, and 49er, so called because it's 4.9%, which it still is to this day. At this stage, it's just important to point out that they were brewing 6,000 pints a year, very much a microbrewery. Now, I'm going to crack open the beer at this stage. I'm going to go for the 49er. Just take the cap off. Lovely little cap with the boar, the boar insignia on it. 49er going into my Ringwood Brewery glass. Now these aren't bottle conditioned, so I'll be able to pour all the way. Got a little bit left. So this is a golden ale of theirs. As you can see, clear all the way through. White head on top. Beautiful carbonation coming through. And yep, you can smell the golden ale. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of golden ales in general, but when there's a good golden ale, it's just a nice sessionable, clean drink, which is good for summer, I would say. Spring, summertime, that's when you want a golden ale. This is winter, but never mind. That is nice. I don't think I've had Ringwood 49 in quite a while, but that is a very nice beer. And we'll have that to drink as we go on, as I talk a bit more about the brewery. So, as I was saying, they were producing 6,000 pints a year, so they were at this stage just a microbrewery. In 1979, their ESB, special bitter Old Fump, was first brewed. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get my hands on that. And this was followed by their XXXX Porter in 1980. These were big beers for them, and they were big ABV beers as well, which is something you weren't getting so much with the mainstream beers. So I think it's important to spell out at this stage that at the time the brewery was launched, the beer in the UK was mainly controlled by 6 big breweries and a few regional family breweries. So the concept of a microbrewery didn't exist. They were among the first to go down this route of having a microbrewery producing small quantities of beer. But the aim was to produce, not mass produced, but good, solid beers. We'll carry on with Peter for a bit because I think it's important, but he's part of the story, but he's also leads into a lot more that goes on in the beer world as well. So in 1980, Peter was a founding member of the Small Independent Brewers Association, which is now known as the Society of Independent Brewers, so SIBA. It's a UK organisation, and he actually became their first chairman. SIBA was responsible for promoting the progressive beer duty, which wanted smaller breweries paying less tax on their beers, and then the bigger breweries paying a higher tax to bring their beer to market. The UK actually introduced a similar system in 2002, which did lead to this whole, well, could be said led to the whole craft beer movement taking off in the UK due to the smaller breweries producing smaller quantities of lower taxes. In 1986, Ringwood moved out from its bakery brewery into the old Trunks Brewery. So they had since disbanded, been bought out, and they bought out that brewery space and moved to it, and that's where it remains to this day. At this stage, the brewery was now producing around, at its new brewery, 23,000 pints a week, which is over 1.2 million a year, and it was mainly for the pubs in the south of England. So you can see that massive increase over the years from the original 6,000 pints a year to 23,000 pints a week. Peter at this stage sold his share of the brewery to Welsh and became a consultant. The move to becoming a consultant wasn't an overnight decision, as between setting up Ringwood in 1978 and 1986, as well as running Ringwood, Peter helped set up 32 new breweries in England. He also travelled to different countries helping set up breweries using his brewing system. And it's something like in total 140 breweries across 17 countries, and 74 of which were in the United States were built using this brewing system. Most famous, I would say, out of those would be Shipyard Brewery in Portland. Right, let's get back to Ringwood. So Peter is now left, moved on to spreading beer throughout the world. But Ringwood Brewery, they had their big moment. In 1988, Old Thumper was voted Champion Beer of Britain by the Campaign for Real Ale, CAMRA, which put the brewery on the map. CAMRA, it is a organisation that would hold beer festivals, and it was a big organisation, quite a bit of clout, and them winning the beer of the Champion Beer of Britain brought a lot of promotion to them, and that promotion obviously led to increased sales. By 1990, they were brewing 1.5 million pints a year. By 1994, this had doubled, or more than doubled, to 3.7 million pints a year. In 1994, at this stage, with the increase, they began work to extend the brewery to keep up with the demand. A modern brew house was installed, and Ringwood moved into the pub trade. So they started owning 7 pubs at this stage, which gives them the process of now to sell down. So not just selling to other free houses, they now own some pubs themselves that they can sell through, which increases the throughput of their beer. So in 1999, further improvement works were completed, which allowed the brewery to produce more than 1 brew per day. So they've not only expanded, but they've now made it possible that they can brew more than 1 brew per day. This is to just keep up with demand. So over the next few years, the brewery continued to grow, and they released new beers as well through this, and some special beers as well. By 2017, Ringwood were now producing 8.5 million pints a year, and at this stage they were considered a big regional brewer. So they had gone from one of the microbreweries to a big regional brewery. In 2007, David Welsh decided to retire, and he sold Ringwood to Marston's Brewery for £19.2 Marston's were a large brewery, having their own brewing operations alongside owning Banks in Wolverhampton and Jennings in Cumbria. So the campaign for it out, Canberra were not pleased at the loss of another independent brewery. However, Marston's did state they would keep the brewery in operation and continue producing the full range of Ringwood beers. And they have mostly stuck by that promise. So the brewery's still open to this day and are still producing the beers. Some changes, some seasonal, you know how it is. In 2013, Ringwood underwent a major rebrand, modernising their artwork and logo, whilst in a sense promoting the boar emblem that you see on the glasses and on the bottle here. This became like their mark at that stage. This sort of brings us to now. The brewery hasn't, under Marston, hasn't done that much of note between the sort of rebrand and where we are now. They're producing around 11.5 million pints a year. I think it's worthwhile therefore mentioning what are their core beers at this stage. So the core beers are the Razorback, coming in at 3.6% here, this bitter in the bottle. We've got 49ers still at 4.9%, as I said. If they change the ABV on that, they've got to change the name, clearly. Old Thumper, I said not been able to get hold of, but that has come down, and it's not under Marston, it's come down through the years anyways, I believe before, but it's come down from 6%, some people say it was even higher before that, but it's now at 5.1%, which is higher than most beer, but it's nothing to, talk about with like Old Thumper meaning a strong ale. 5.1 is premium market at that stage. They've also introduced Boondoggle in 1997, which was a blonde beer. That's 4.2%, and I, again, haven't been able to get out of a bottle. Current situations, they're normally quite available, these beers. Unfortunately not, with how the world is at the moment. And then lastly, in 2016, they launched the Circadian, which is a 4.5% IPA. And it's not a bad IPA, it's an English IPA. Nice hoppiness to it. Probably my favourite out of these three here, but I thought I'd dig into the 49er, considering it's one of the originals. It is good. It is a nice beer, this. They also do some seasonal ales. So they still produce their XXXX Porter. Always got to remember how many X's there are in there. Alongside seasonals, I don't think there's been any seasonals this year, but there are seasonals through the years to celebrate different milestones. Even celebrating, I've got a little one here. This is just showing 40 years of brewery, but I believe during those landmarks they also produce special beers as well at that stage. At this stage, normally I'll talk about awards that the company have received, the brewery have received recently. I haven't actually seen any recently that have been awarded to the brewery, so I don't know if that's just they don't go in for the competitions anymore, or they're not concerned. But the biggest win seems to be their 1998 Canberra Supreme Beer of Britain. That's the one that they talk about. It sort of really promoted the brewery, made it more, known and famous at that stage. So that's it really. It brings us up to date, goes through the beers, of which I've got 3 of them here. And it's a history of Ringwood. I hope you found this interesting. Please do check out the rest of this series. I've got some more coming up as well. And I'd really be interested in your feedback, your thoughts. If you've had Ringwood before, and if you've had even Old Thumper when it was at the higher ABV, I'd be interested to know it all. Alright, until next time.